I think one of the things that kept me in the church for longer than it should have is because I stayed in as long as I needed to, but for whatever I needed to learn for my life journey. But what's funny is like, this isn't funny. Sorry. What's sad is that I still, for so long being Mormon, I had such a pinhole view of the world, and you kind of just naturally assume that other people have the bad experiences and get the bad lessons that you had if you had a negative experience in the church. And so I had such a disdain for a lot of ex-Mormons for so long because I didn't understand what their problem was. I was like, yeah, leave the church, leave it alone. Like, okay, you didn't like this. Yeah, some leaders say some crazy things, but just ignore them. It's like, no, people were conditioned to revere these leaders like they talk for God in ways that I wasn't. And I just had to literally grow up and mature to the point where I needed to start listening to people's messages. And I'm trying to remember like when that kind of clicked for me is embarrassing. Like late 20s is when it started to click with me that, oh, you know what it literally was? Because the first thing that I watched when I was kind of like, all right, I don't like ex-Mormons. I'm definitely staying Mormon, but let's see what they have to say. When my first like empathy like light switch turned on was an interview that Sam and Tanner did from Zelf on the Shelf with Sean McCraney, is that his last name? Yeah. With Heart of the Matter. And I was like, I wanted to be a Christian no matter what. So I was like, okay, the Christian's in the room, I can watch this. And their interview was just so genuine. And you could tell like Tanner had long, deep-rooted testimony, probably deeper than I could ever have. Yeah. And he had to come to terms with that he had to rebuild a new life outside the church. It just was not true. And Sam saying that in her own way. And I was like, fuck, these are two incredibly articulate people, and I agree with everything they say. And it was just, you know, downhill or uphill, however you want to think of it, from there, because I had to really listen and empathize that ex-Mormons, they do have a legitimate point. And once you start like listening and hearing that like people leave for very valid reasons, what are some valid reasons you should maybe be paying attention to? Maybe you should go look up some of that anti-Mormon material you were never told to look at before. Maybe you should actually know who wrote the Bible and how it was put together, and just start deconstructing things if you're going to. Especially like I was saying earlier with like the LGBT things, like if you're going to defend your church on these issues that are so causing so much harm to people, you better know what you're talking about. And I think that's going to become a real hot issue, or just more and more people, the tension getting hotter and hotter, right? So anyway, I had to just deconstruct that my upbringing was probably 10 out of 10 as healthy in every way that I could have asked for. So,
but it sounds like there's some awesomeness about that, but some insidiousness about that, because it sounds like what you're saying is because you were raised by progressive, feminist, cool leaders, that made you feel more comfortable in the church, and more affection for the church, such that maybe it took you longer.
Yeah, it was a different church.
It took you longer to see the church clearly.
Yeah,
and it was harder to leave it because you had been inoculated with kind of a more nuanced way of looking, nuanced too, because it was a more nuanced way of looking at things, and you had such a positive experience. Right. So in some ways that's insidious.
Yeah, that's what I always say, where I'm like, it kept me in, like, who knows if I had a different upbringing, like if I would have done that, but I was like, that's how the universe spit me out in Provo, Utah. These are the people that surrounded me. This is the conditioning that I had. And I got out. All I can say is I definitely felt like I was in the church for the times of my life. If that's all I had, like that's enough. Like I had the church that got me through some definitely like difficult times that I can't imagine. And now that just helps me that I empathize more with people why they don't leave the church. Like I was living in this student family housing in Salt Lake. It's probably similar to the one that's like at Utah State or BYU, where it's just tons of Mormons packed in these tiny apartments with like, you know, a playground in the middle and just packs and packs of Mormon families. And I'm raising 2 babies at this point. My husband's in school full time and working, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. And you walk outside your front door and I have all the friends I would need. They're all Mormon, all people on my board. If I, for some reason, found out the church wasn't true at that time and I had to not attend church anymore, like to out of my own conscience or whatever, I would have, it's like that social, what's the word? Social, I can't remember, but it would have destroyed my social life, my mental health, everything that kept me going when I was raising my girls when they were really little in this tiny apartment, when you're really poor. And the church was absolutely just that community that I needed that was right outside my front door every single day. So I really try to like empathize why like you would have never in 1,000,000 years been able to reach me like 3 years ago. You would not have been able to because my life, my mental health, everything about my life revolved around keeping up appearances at church just to be able to get through the day because life was just such a grind back then. And it gave me hope and it gave me purpose and it gave me those things. And so I don't want people to get the wrong idea, like I said before, that like, I think that you should give that up in favor of what I think you should do. It's like, if you've already decided that you're going to give that up, here's a safe like landing ground, you know, with my videos and everything else that I plan on doing in the future. We'll see what else I'm up to, but.